It's always weird when you hit record and then your face is like right here. All right. Well, we were just talking like you're in the army, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So how did that all come about? Like when did you decide to join the army?
Man, it actually is a pretty interesting story. And a lot of people don't know this story about me, but I dropped out of high school.
Really?
Yeah, when I was a senior in high school, September 11th had happened, and I already kind of knew that I was going to join the military. Basically, every male in my family has been in the military, Army, Air Force, Navy, whatever that may be. My dad was a Green Beret. Um,
Oh,
so
that's rad.
I kind of knew that was going to be my path. I had this kind of idea in my head that I would go to college first. I'd join the military after as an officer, and then shortly into my senior year, September 11th happened, and I was a weird spot in my life anyway, where I think that I was getting kind of bored and disgruntled, and just kind of like, I already know what I'm going to do, so why not go now? Because my kind of concern or my fear is that I would miss any kind of war or conflict that would come as a result of 9/11. If I didn't hurry up and get there, then a few months, a year or two would probably be too late to go do
Man,
anything.
how wrong are
Yeah,
you
that we
on that
find out
one?
20 years later. So I went to my parents, who were split. My dad lived in San Antonio, and I kind of said like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." And of course, they both said, like, absolutely not. You're a lunatic.
Your dad too?
And my dad too.
I
Yeah.
guess is that something typical? So like, would you tell your kids if they said they want to join the army? Would you be like, no?
Yeah, I mean, I'd react the same way, I guess. It's like, in terms of like, so it wasn't joining the military. It was the idea of quitting to join, because my dad actually had the foresight to know that this thing is going to last, a while. It's not like, you got time type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I did it anyway against their wishes, basically. And I quit and went and got my GED a couple days later, and then I went to the recruiting station and signed up. So a couple months later, I got sent to basic and all that stuff. And while I was in my first unit, I specifically asked to go to 10th Mountain Division, which there was a there's a lot of history behind the 10th Mountain Division, in terms of they're the most deployable unit in the military. When anything happens, they're the first to go. And Operation Anaconda, that started basically Afghanistan, that's who they sent immediately. So I asked to go there, knowing full well that they'd kind of be the first ones in the thick of it. When I got to my unit, I was there for a couple months, and we'd kind of been told that we were getting ready to go to Afghanistan. Be ready for that, because there was 10th Mountain units that were already there, and we're going to rotate in and out. And then, there's a string of kind of warning orders and recalls and things like that that go with when you're about to get deployed. And they called us up one night and they said, "Hey, get all your stuff," because our bags have been packed for months, just waiting to leave. There's an airstrip at 10th Mountain, Fort Drum, New York. There's an actual airstrip there, so it's like you can jump onto a C-130 and just fly out. And so they call us, one morning, and basically tell us, "Hey, get all your stuff. We're heading over to the airstrip. We're leaving." And then when we were there, they said, "Surprise, you're going to Iraq instead." And so, of course, we've been training for months and months, and trying to learn Pashto and stuff like that, which is what the Afghani speak. And then we find out that we're going to Iraq, and it was just like this crazy curveball. Iraq was a different situation, because my unit specialized in kind of more the close quarters combat type of, like, entering, clearing buildings and rooms and things like that.
Yeah.
And we kind of prepped more for being on foot, dismounted, because that's what we do. Is, at most, maybe you jump in a helicopter and fly somewhere and get dropped off, go do your thing, get picked up. Iraq turned into it was all a mounted operation, Humvees and tanks and armored carriers and things like that. So that wasn't something that we traditionally or typically did, which was, it was an adjustment. It was kind of odd. So That's my story in a nutshell, how I got to, where I was going.
Were you good at school? Like, did you like school, or were you just
Yeah,
like,
I was always like a B student,
yeah,
because it was one of those things where I kind of, I guess I was smart enough to get by, and
didn't really care for for the work though?
what's that?
Didn't really care for
No,
like doing the schoolwork.
no, it's there were certain things that intrigued me, certain subjects that I, liked, stuff that I think I found more important or practical.
Yeah,
I would kind of fixate on, and then I was uh, with like procedural math and stuff. I can, I can do great, math, adding and subtracting stuff in my head like pretty quickly and stuff. But when you start to ask me to memorize a bunch of theorems, and it goes south pretty
it's like,
quick.
what do I do that
Yeah,
for?
exactly.
Yeah,
I think that was kind of the deal was, is this important or no? Because if it's important, then I'll memory hole it. If not, then I don't need
yeah.
it. I'm pushing that to the side.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot like, and I know the way I am with schools, like, or anything that I want to learn, it doesn't matter what it is. If I'm interested, I go like super intense into that thing
Right. Yeah.
and go do deep dives and research and learn all these different things. And I'm soaking up all of the knowledge and I'm retaining it. If I don't, man, it's so hard for me just to get by, like
Yes.
just enough to get
That
to a certain
that
point.
was very much me, and I think that was, you know I've always kind of lived my life like, I remember when I was, I guess, probably about junior high. You hear about like, what they call the Renaissance men and stuff, like Leonardo and people like that. Kind of even going back to, like now this, stoicism is something that's
Yeah.
uber popular. People talk about, um, and if you look at those guys, going back to like Marcus Aurelius or whatever, um, there's a common theme of kind of this jack of all trades type, mentality. And I remember, I think I was like in junior high or something, and started kind of like reading into some of these great minds of the past, and these guys that, had revolutionized something, or they, made some kind of significant impact. And there was always a kind of common theme, which was that they were very multifaceted. Guys that, they had, several different kind of, trades. They knew multiple different languages. They had different interests and hobbies and things like that. Um, and I think it's awesome when somebody is really, really good at one thing and they're just like the best and hyper
Yeah.
fixated on it, and that's their life. But I I think it's more valuable, at least on a personal level, that you know a little bit about everything. You can kind of get by, maybe like that jack of all trades, master of none type thing.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
I can get by virtually doing anything. I might not be the best or the greatest at one thing. Um, but again, like I appreciate that about people. I think it's awesome. I wish there was times where I could just say I'm the absolute best at something. But if I, can get around a couple different languages, and I can get around, obviously, at least, on the, above average physically fit. If you, you know a little bit about cars, a little bit about X, Y, or Z business, then I think you fare better in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could be viewed different ways. Like sometimes I think that if you take a break from that thing that you're so zeroed in on, like you love that one thing, and then you learn a bunch about like different things, your common sense and way to relate to the thing that you like when you come back to it, you'll be better.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that's true or not. I mean, I know singularly focused people, they're just so dedicated to
Right.
one thing.
Yeah.
But then I've also known people that are uber talented that are kind of good at a lot of different things.
Right.
Like they have hobbies outside of that one thing. That's what makes them good. I think it depends on the person,
I would agree. Yeah, I
you
think
know?
so. That's why I say I do have, like a deep respect and appreciation for people that are just, hyper fixated on being the best, or having this one specific thing.
Yeah.
But I think, uh, what it does is when you have that, you lose a lot of your kind of peripheral, and by that, kind of what I mean is basically that, I think that you get almost like blinded, to some degree, that you're I'll give you an example. Like one of the things, and I know this is a hot button topic, but like with COVID stuff, um, you basically had most of what would be like the medical community that was in agreement that this was just massive plague and epidemic, and that people were dying, and the only way to fix it or the only way to curb it is through these pretty, you know, kind of, I guess what would be a, like archaic type of mandates and things like that. But when it kind of came down to it, like it was because those people don't know anything about economy. They don't know anything about social groups or interactions. They don't know anything about, so it's like they got this precise, very opinionated idea about what to do about something, but they could not take into account multiple other variables because that's just not something that they. So it's like, yeah, this guy might be a phenomenal general practitioner or whatever it is that he does, and maybe, I mean, maybe even he's specialized in something, but that doesn't mean that this person knows the best course of action to to work around a so-called pandemic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's two things. What you said is, I never thought of it from that angle where they're just so singularly focused. But one thing I do know, like without any ill intentions at all, they sat there and looked at it from, so doctors are reactionary to, they're trying to fix something that's already damaged, right?
Right.
So they're safety prone. They're not going to tell you, hey, go jump off this rock into water because you might hurt yourself and then you'll come see me and I don't want to have to fix you. Like, I'm trying to keep you from coming in to see me. So live in a bubble. Don't ever walk around. Don't scrape your knee. Don't do this. Don't do that. Like that's doctors. They're prone to tell you how to stay out of their office in a sense of like, how did you break your arm? Like if you ask me, how did you break your foot? It's like, well, I flipped off of a stage. I landed sideways. So you probably should stop doing flips, right?
Correct.
Like, no, I'm not going to stop doing flips. Like, you know what I mean?
How do you mitigate that? Assuming,
right.
Let's just assume that I'm not going to change, anything. How do I mitigate the damage caused by that?
But when you think that way, you think in that term of that, you can live inside of a bubble and everything will be fine. The problem is human beings have to go out and do jobs. People have to mow the lawns, otherwise infestations come in. People have to go interact with people. There's psychological things with that. There's all sorts of stuff with that. So there's more than just coming in for that disease that's damaging, for one. And for two, if you really think about it common sense wise, you can't stop an invisible creature such as a respiratory virus. Like it's something that spreads, that like it's impossible to stop it.
Well, and to that degree, two things come to mind based off that. One is that there was a lot of almost like there was just this weird immediate consensus about something that nobody really understood, and then that and again, it's like I know like general practitioners, I know people that are oncologists, I know people that are physical therapists, I know people, they don't have a clue about virology. Like there's no, so even there's almost like this idea that they call it like an appeal to authority, that if somebody has what would be even perceptive authority to them, then they automatically warrant more kind of like
the cat playing. It's a sweet cat. It's a sweet cat.
Yeah. So, kind of going back to the point, one of the things that you saw almost immediately is that there was kind of this consensus between all these doctors and stuff, that a general practitioner barely, and I would give some argument that there's a case to be made that has a GP has a little bit more guidance or expertise or something than say you or I, but it's not just because somebody's a doctor doesn't mean they have the slightest idea about
Yeah.
COVID-19 or
Right.
Wuhan virus or whatever.
I don't think anybody really knew though. I mean, I really don't think they did. I mean, I think that's where the fear came in. And this is one thing where you can speak of it differently, just hearing your story, like as a kid, and then knowing the things that I did as a kid, and like a lot of kids that grew up 70s, 80s, like when you grow up through even the 90s, for really like even the 90s part was this way until really technology came in, where you had the internet really came in. Um, the reaction to fear is what blew my mind, and that's the part of it. Like nobody really knew. So what do we do? And now we're super scared because fear creeps in about all these things that could happen and couldn't happen. And like you're sitting there, like really wanting to go into the army and go into Afghanistan. Like you don't want to miss the war.
Right.
There's nothing scarier than that. Like there's nothing scarier than going into a battle where like you're having people are shooting at you, you're trying to kill the other person, they're trying to kill you. Like that's the ultimate goal of this situation. And you're not playing by rules. There's no rules in that situation. It's just it is what it is. Like your tactics can beat their tactics, and it's the ultimate truth game. Like you win or lose, right?
Of course, like some of that to some degree is being young and dumb and ignorant to some degree, because you don't know what you're kind of getting yourself into.
But I mean, your fear level,
you can have a general idea, but it's kind of like like there are a lot of things that I learned as a result, kind of on the backside. Probably it's funny because there's probably things that I'm probably more mindful of now that I wasn't then, and maybe then put a little bit more credence in some things that probably aren't as a big deal as now. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah. I think that's life in general.
And honestly, one of those things, again, with like going kind of full circle back to this COVID stuff and the government and authority reaction and stuff, is that the bureaucrats and of course, again, that's from the city all the way up to the federal level. A lot of times they're just like idiots might be too harsh, but they're not. It's the same thing as the average person walking down the street that's terrified of COVID. These are the same people that govern us. They're emotionally susceptible to to being afraid. To one of the big things that I noticed right away immediately is nobody would step up and actually kind of talk back any of these mandates or just the emotional irrational way people were acting, because they were afraid of liability. It's like anytime you went to like a business, or anytime that you dealt with any kind of public official or whatever, even in Texas or Florida with Governor DeSantis to some degree, he was the first person to be like, this is stupid, like we're not doing this anymore. Up until that point, basically everybody was silent, and then as soon as you see that where somebody finally says something, then the dominoes start to fall, because everybody was afraid of being the first one to be blamed, that there was some huge surge in their state, or
if Florida didn't turn out good, then they're like, oh,
yes, exactly right.
And so he would be in trouble.
That's something that I've known or felt for a long time, but it really got solidified with the COVID stuff. Is you've got people in positions of authority, and again, they're mostly just whether they be elected officials or unelected bureaucrats. But when they work for the government, there's always an element of incompetence, and there's always an element of kind of this. It's like a self-serving type thing, like it's not about like doing the right thing. Now the right thing and action and those things might align sometimes, and everybody might be happy about these things, but that's never the primary goal is never for the the populace. It's always for that immediate self-serving type of again, kind of like damage control type situation. COVID really disappointed me, because I knew a lot of people, personally knew people that they really went kind of all in on disassociating from people and kind of having this mentality that it's like they're so much more virtuous than everybody else because they follow the rules and because they get vaccinated and they do
Yeah.
these things that these people, they kind of tell them to do, and it's going to make everything better. And they go do it, nothing gets better, and then it's almost kind of like they double down because they don't want to be wrong. There's like this human nature element of like, if you really believe in something wholeheartedly, if you've bought, this agenda, and you get presented with evidence that it's inaccurate, it's very difficult to ever to admit, because what's ultimately what that kind of means is like you were dumb, like
Yes.
whether true or not. But the idea is that you fell for something, that you got duped, you allowed yourself to be
Yeah.
manipulated,
Yeah. Yeah.
and nobody wants to admit that. So
No.
even now you still see, where people they're kind of like barely tiptoeing out, and it's almost like this idea that everybody's just like acting like it just disappeared or went away. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, what, 6 months ago, like I knew people that were hysterical, like that literally would have like taken
Yeah.
taken somebody's kids away from them for not being vaccinated or something. Like we know people like that. And
Yeah.
it's a frightening concept to see what happens to people when they get scared, because that goes back to the basis of this whole thing.
Yeah.
People were scared, and they led themselves right into the rail cars, and it's frightening.
Yeah. They have no relationship with fear. That's what like there's
Exactly.
no,
Yeah.
you haven't tested that, like you haven't seen the fear before of anything. Like you have, even on a small scale,
Yeah.
it's so safe. Everything you do is so like, oh, I can't, like people ask me all the time, you rollerblade without a helmet. I'm like, yeah, I do. Like it's not smart. Like it's dumb.
Yeah.
It's not the safest way to do things. But like I believe that I have some sort of little relationship from fear from the things I've done as a kid.
You understand the risks.
Yeah, I understand risk, reward, like, and the way Kim puts it is best. Like I do dangerous things safely.
And as long as you have your life insurance policy
updated, then,
then it's like, all right, well,
go ahead.
Yeah.
But like you really get to see how people freak out when something happens.
Yeah.
Like you're like, whoa, I didn't know how many people nowadays would just go berserk like that. I mean, yes, it can be scary, but take a breath and like, what can you actually do about it? Yeah. Nothing. You can't. You're talking about stoicism. That's everything in stoicism pretty much falls back to like, don't worry about the things you can't control.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, like, but the things you worry about the most, I've realized this a lot, especially lately, is the things that you worry about, at least for me, is the things that I can't control. I have, like, even if I mess up, I'm okay with that. I don't worry about the things like that. But if I can't control the outcome, good or bad, oh man, that's like, it's like, why am I stressing over that? I really can't do anything. I can do things like act properly to try to deflect things in a certain manner.
To try to like mitigate those things that you can't control, to find a workaround or something, or
right.
Yeah. I started thinking about things in terms of, trying to prioritize what's important, or, what's something that is like, because I love to procrastinate. Like I'm a natural procrastinator. I'll freely admit it. I will wait till the last minute on a lot of things, but you can do that if you can correctly prioritize or assign, a level of importance to certain things. And there are things that, like, I know I can procrastinate on, and there are things that that you can't. And it's kind of like, also you also look at, okay, well, if I flub this up, or whatever, exactly how bad is that? Is this a really big deal, or is it kind of a minor type of thing?
Yeah.
And so I started looking at things that way, because my life, it's far from perfect, but it's pretty good. And I kind of realized that it got better as I learned to kind of let go of things. Because one of the things, they talk about with regards to stoicism and stuff is that all you're doing by, kind of having these anxieties and stuff is you're living in problems that don't exist yet. Like if you're constantly looking ahead at problems, and it's like, oh, well, this is kind of, a lingering thing, and certainly you can't do anything about it right now, then all you're doing is constantly kind of living in anxiety and anxiousness for nothing, because it's like that hasn't happened yet. So
Yeah.
don't, why are you worried about it? Which of course is easier said than done. But it puts things into perspective a little bit whenever you really can kind of have that moment of levity to sit down and say, it's like, hey, is this a big deal or not? Because at the end of the day, if you go back and you think about like, and I've had some pretty, I guess like catastrophic or traumatic events in my life. Still here, like I'm
Yeah.
still here and
Yeah.
things are pretty good. There have definitely been points in my life where I'm like this is awful, like this is life changing.
Yeah.
It's going to make my life substantially worse. I'm going to go through something, and I'm going through something that I might never recover from. Things are going to be awful, and then all of a sudden, fast forward 1, 2, 7 years, 10 years later, and things are great. And it's like,
Yeah.
so you put that into perspective, and of course you think about things like, God forbid, you lose somebody very close to you or something like that. Those are things that would be more of a, obviously a life-changing, long-term or forever type event that you would have to learn to manage or cope with. But other than that, what the fuck is there?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I, I don't give a shit, like whatever. It's
Yeah.
literally that simple to me.
Unless you've committed some sort of major crime,
Right.
and you're going to prison for a
Yeah.
really long time,
Exactly.
none of this stuff is forever. Like even bankruptcy is not forever.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you
Exactly.
can lose all your money. People have lost their money 2 and 3 times and are millionaires
And become the president.
billionaires. Yeah, yeah, become the president.
Yeah.
But I mean that, like, it's really true. Like Dave Ramsey lost all of everything. He was delivering pizzas in his car, and look at him.
Yeah.
Like it's not something my dad like spent all of his life in one industry, was forced out of it kind of in a weird way in this situation into a different industry, got back into that industry, and then just decided to change it completely. Like I think he was mid 40s. He just went, I want to do something totally different. He went back to school and created a totally different career. And then he changed it again and went a different direction. Like so there's really nothing you are right. And I just happen to think of that. Like we get stuck in thinking things are going to be forever.
Yeah.
This pain, like the struggle is going to be forever that I'm running right now. Not if you don't want it to be. Like you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and eventually it's out of your way.
See, and I don't know. This isn't based on anything other than just kind of a little bit of education or experience, and certainly personal experience, or kind of having exposure to things in life. But I kind of feel like it's oftentimes, to have that outlook or mentality, you really have to know what rock bottom is. You have to have felt it, because if you do it, and then of course you can kind of go one of two ways. Like if you ever go through something that's just extremely traumatic, or you feel like completely helpless or hopeless or whatever, and you kind of hit that rock bottom of depression or whatever that is, you can either kind of succumb to it, and that just becomes your life, your norm, or you fight through it. And as much as you might not even know that you're doing it at the time, but at that year or two or whatever that takes, whatever this event is, that it eventually passes. And then I think you kind of wake up one day, and you're just like, I did it, and I survived. And if that didn't kill me, what else is there? Like if you really feel like you've kind of gone through it, life looks a lot different once you kind of make it through the other side on that.
Yeah.
So that's something, I've had some experiences in life where,
but then here's a question. Does the traumatic thing that you went through sometimes seem as traumatic as it did in the moment?
I don't know.
I mean, there's some things that definitely do, and you look back and like maybe you're not in that place, be like, dude, I just went through that. Like if a near-death experience is by far like that's something crazy. You're seeing people die, or like being car accidents, whatever that may be. Like if you've witnessed these things, those things can be like uber traumatic, right? Death of a loved one, those sort of things, in like a out of the norm type of
Yeah.
way. But outside of something crazy like that, I often think like, man, sometimes they feel a little bit more traumatic in the moment. You look back, you're like, it really wasn't that bad.
You know what I think that is though, and I've thought about this, and I've you know I've made this point to people. I think it's that's like desensitization is where you get to a point where and I'm guilty of this sometimes where it's hard to be like empathetic to other people because you kind of do that whole thing. You prioritize like what their current problem is or what they're
Yeah.
going through, and then you're just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like that, you're falling apart over that because
Yeah.
this happened to me.
Yeah.
I've been through this, and it's just like um, when you look back at maybe your own problems, even you sit there and you say, well, you're almost desensitized to it because you did go through it. You
Yeah.
did, you knocked it out, you beat it. So it's kind of like, it really wasn't a big deal. Well, I mean, shit's a big deal. It's certainly a big deal at the time. And I think, of course, like you kind of make that point that time kind of changes that perception. But I've certainly felt like, and this is something that I have to navigate with, with relationships with friends and things like that, where people are kind of going through something and it's not from coming from a place of genuinely not caring or genuinely not being sympathetic.
Yeah.
But it's hard to have empathy sometimes whenever you think you've gone through something that's just far worse than what anybody else can imagine.
You're like, suck it up, buttercup.
I honestly do believe it's true. I think it is true. I think
Yeah.
it is one of those things that people don't, they just, so many people haven't really been through the ringer, like they've and even if they have to some degree, and this is the subjective side of me, they didn't learn what they were supposed to learn from it. They didn't learn this idea of like, you need to be a fucking warrior. Like if something happens to you, if you have to deal with something or go through something, you can choose two paths. You can lay down or you can fight.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're going to, like, everybody is going to have scars. Like, you're going to have scars, you're going to have like residual effects. Everybody does, for again, from that gamut of is this really serious, is this really, or is this kind of a minor inconvenience? Everybody has scars, and everybody has these residual effects of things that they've gone through. That's not the difference between kind of giving up and fighting. It's like, you're going to fight and you're going to come out damaged. You certainly are. But that's that continual evolution of how do you continue to manage that? How do you continue to try to become a better person? How do you continue to try to fix those lingering residual effects?
Yeah.
And I feel like you've seen that to some degree with everything going on in the world. We've just become soft, and I don't think that anybody. There's always this kind of idea to where you kind of like coddle people and their problems now. That's the way that you so-called treat elements is like you almost kind of placate to them, or it's like don't get me wrong, there's plenty of times where you have to be like emotionally I guess
there's a difference between
considerate.
helping somebody and being helpful and beneficial to them, and then enabling them to just linger on that, like, on their problems. Like, it's almost like they don't want the problem to go away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that, like there's a difference between truly helping somebody. Like, if somebody asks, people get annoyed with me sometimes because they'll ask me a question. I think of solution. My brain automatically goes to, how do we fix
it?
Yeah. How do we fix it? How do I fix it? Okay. It sucks. Yeah. How do I fix it? How do I fix this? And it's like, I don't want you to tell me how to fix it. I just want to vent. I'm like, well, crap. I was being, that wasn't the role I was playing right now.
I don't know how many times I've heard that.
How do I get out of that mindset of like, okay, I have to shut my mouth and just listen?
But is it your job to do that? Like, I mean, I guess in what capacities? Like, if you're talking to your wife or your girlfriend or something like that, maybe a close friend, you have that. But then you have some of those times where it's just like, is it my job to listen to you fucking whine? like if you're gonna come to me with a problem,
Yeah.
then let me help you address it, you know. And certainly don't come to me uh if you're not going to even follow it or listen to it or act on it, you
Yeah.
know. Because if you want to be the person that people, I mean, it's so draining, like when people come to you and they whine all the time,
Yeah.
like
If
if
it's
you,
constant,
it's just
yes.
constant type of
Yes.
um and I think that, you know, people, they don't know the difference between probably venting and like complaining or whining, you know, kind of being
Yeah,
that
sure.
and sometimes there is. And I again, I'm kind of like, I felt like I know where you're going with the idea of like, just come up with a solution and
Yeah.
fix it and move on, and we don't have to talk about it anymore, right? Like it just goes
That's
away.
that's what being a real optimist is. It's not like
Yeah,
it's not seeing the suckiness in things.
ignoring
It's
problems.
literally
Yeah,
like, well, how do I find a way out of this? Like,
yeah,
I'm not going to stop fighting until I get out of this little situation that I'm in. Like,
yeah.
there's got to be another way. There's got to be another hole. There's got to be something I can do that can better my situation
And
at some point in time.
it's not the idea either that you're just like just some slap happy idiot that everything is going to work out great,
No, not at all.
because it's not, you know, like you're going to have a problem, and for the most part there's no clean solution to a problem. You know,
Right.
you're
That's a good point.
juggling like okay, you have a problem and you've got multiple options to fix it. Each one of them, one might be more, you know, better or more attractive than the other, but each one of them is going to have like positive and a negative
A
kind of
negative consequence
connotation.
in it.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, you know, the kind of taking water out of one side of the bathtub. You know, you're going to move stuff around, and once you move stuff around to try to accommodate for this issue, something else is going to kind of pop in its place. You know, you're going to have to navigate something else. And so the idea of just being optimistic is, it's almost like I don't even look at it as optimism. I look at it almost like just not being a emotional nutcase. You know, like chill out. Like it's gonna be okay. You
Yeah.
know. And again, it's easy when you're talking about, you know, the 90% of problems that most people might incur, things like that.
Right.
It's totally different when
Right.
you're talking about the loss of a very close loved one or something, or somebody gets a catastrophic illness or terminal illness or
Yeah.
something. I mean, there are instances where it's just like, I mean, we can sit here and say, Jesus, how do you recover from that? You
But
know,
then you look
like
at those people and you go like, man, what a animal. Like
yeah,
what a
oh yeah,
complete animal
yeah.
that person is, because they just kept trucking.
I
Like,
look at people like
how in the
that, you
world do
know,
you do that?
somebody that you know, somebody that loses their sight or a limb or something, and they do these amazing things and stuff, and I can literally sit there and just be like, I don't know if I could do that. You know, like I
Yeah.
really don't. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I can sit here and you know, talk all the crap I want about being this, you know, tough person, mentally, physically tough person. But I look at some things that people have accomplished with, you know, more adversity than I have, and say like, damn, you know, like I don't even know if I could do that. That's impressive.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I don't have all the right answers, I don't think, but I feel like if you know, if you really kind of sit down and you think about things in terms of like where your balance in the world is, you know, where do I fit in? I kind of see it as one of those deals that if you're not constantly questioning, and I don't mean outright just being belligerent about the, you know, the status quo or authority, but if you're not constantly questioning the norm, the narrative,
Oh yeah.
the general opinion about things, if you're not constantly questioning yourself, um, if you're not looking at just multiple, it kind of goes back to that jack of all trades thing. If you're not taking in information from as many sources as you can feasibly navigate,
Yeah.
then you're doing yourself, you're doing everybody else a disservice. Because again, you know, you look at these crises that pop up that just completely put people on their heads and change the narrative around the country. When you go from like race relations to COVID to Ukraine, to the Roe stuff, everybody loses their minds, and then it's like what a few weeks or so go by, and it's like nobody even cares anymore. You know, like the
Yeah.
Roe stuff, what 2 3 weeks ago, I couldn't get on social media without everybody like they're coming to put women in prison camps and stuff. Like it's just insane, right? And then all of a sudden nobody is like, you don't hear anything,
Yeah.
because they realize like, oh my god, my life didn't really change that much, you know, like
Yep.
and so it's like, just take a step back, as soon as that wave starts coming in of people just losing it, just kind of take a step back and don't, it's like they talk about, like, if you play with mud or whatever, you get some on you type of thing or whatever. It's like if you remove yourself from the fray and just kind of say, it's like, let me see how this kind of plays out. Let me question. Let me take in some,
Yeah.
kind of contradicting type evidence. Or I feel like if you're not doing that, then you're really kind of, you might make it through life. You probably will make it through
Oh, you
life just
will.
fine.
Yeah, you'll make it
You
through.
you
But
might even, be wildly successful. But if you really want to talk, and people always talk about like the meaning of life and what's the point and all that kind of stuff. If you're really looking at it in terms of that, I mean, it's like, um, I don't want to just, kind of follow the path through. You know what I mean?
yeah, just exist.
It just exists.
That
Yeah, and
sounds
just,
boring.
no, no way, man. Not for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what that part of what you're saying, like the hysteria of people, they will make it through life. They have been and they are, and I think that's part of our situation now. Is like their echo chamber is everybody they agree with all the time.
Yeah.
There's only one solution to this problem. This is the way to that, and they never entertain the other angle of things. And then with social media, their algorithms are all things to either upset them, that like poke at them, but it's all from one side. It's all
Yes.
on their side of the way they look at things. I remember I had a friend like come at me one time and was like, dude, I can't believe that you're this aggressive Trump supporter. You're this, you're that. Like, I can't believe that this is that. Like, when did this come on? I was like, well, I'm not really. Like, well, you reposted this on Twitter. I was like, yeah, but I reposted what Tulsi Gabbard said on Twitter.
Right. Yeah.
Like, do you not see that one? Like,
And
oh,
yeah,
I didn't.
exactly.
No, I didn't. I go, yeah, like, I'm just saying, like, I look at what people, their actions. I had to like practice this. I'm not saying I'm the best at it either, because I definitely have my biases. But when you say question everything, that's the only way to get the honest truth. And I love honesty. Like, honesty is one of the most important things to me around, because it's the only way you get better at anything.
Yeah.
And so, like, appreciating the honesty. Well, what did the person actually do versus what's being said?
Yeah.
Like, I don't. My wife is awesome at this. Like, she hates words. She loves actions. That's it. And so it's like, that is a true thing. Like, what did the person actually do? Like, if you were to take away the two-party system right now, take away liberal and conservative, the name, take away Democrat and Republican. Now look at what the people do. Like, look at their thing and look at
Sure.
what solutions they solve, what the policy or the thing they put in place did, what was the result of that, and then just make your decisions off of that. But it's like, no, we've got to have a team. I cheer for the Eagles, you cheer for the Cowboys, and no matter if Terrell Owens plays for both teams, I'm a fan of his when he's on my team, and I hate his guts when he's on the other team.
Man, I've been saying that for a long time now, because it's frightening. I can give so many examples of kind of the hypocrisy associated with the political parties and the teams. That team concept is frightening because, like here's a great example of. So the federal government is, it's like this just snowball fast track of getting way out of control, and it's been for many years. People now, and this is the point, people now on the right or the conservative or libertarian side, they're kind of becoming alarmed to now you have obviously the kind of the liberal progressive ideology. Democrats are in control of everything, and you're seeing this stuff where the FBI or Department of Justice or whatever has been basically weaponized against any kind of conservative kind of dissenting thought. You saw the stuff where they were going after parents at school board meetings because they didn't want their kids to wear freaking face masks. It's insane. And so the right has kind of been awakened to this. And one of the things that again, this is the time when I was in my late teens, early 20s in the military, and they had this was in high school. I think they had passed the Patriot Act, and conservatives loved the Patriot Act because it was just this amazing piece of legislation that was going to make it to where these alphabet agencies could go and chase down evil brown terrorists,
Well,
and they're going to
a
save us all.
conservative put it in place.
And yeah, and a conservative president,
Yeah.
and you've got and don't get me wrong, like most of the Democrats did too. But what people were lost on people at the time, and they're seeing evidence of now that same apparatus that they cheered for is now the same stuff they're using to target the new bad guys, the new which are
Nice.
the white conservative Christian redneck terrorists, like
Yep.
domestic terrorists. They're using the same stuff that we cheerleaded for to now use effectively, and I say we or us, loosely, but they're using it now against this group of people that loved that stuff before. And you're seeing, and what's going to be just, and you see it back and forth all the time, where it's like they pass something, and then so all that happens in the midst of all this is the federal government itself becomes like this bigger, larger, massive institution that anybody whoever has like the the idiot stick, they can beat anybody they want as long as they're the one holding it. And, no one gets that there because it's like, because your team right now has it, you're cheering like, yeah, make it. And when they're talking about COVID mandates, they're talking about taking away people's ability to defend themselves with firearms. They're talking about the mandatory vaccines. They're talking about, again, taking these federal apparatuses and using them to go after political dissent, things like that. The left and the progressives are just wildly excited about this idea. What they don't realize is that pendulum's going to swing back, and it's going to swing back, and whenever it swings back, you're going to have a lot of really pissed off people that want retribution. And you saw that they're going to say, you tried to ruin my life, like you took over things for 2 years, 4 years, whatever that is, and you tried to literally destroy me, and so I'm going to do it now too. And it's my turn, and it's going to be this a ridiculous snowball effect, because nobody is going to back down and say, you know what, because you think to some degree they learned their lesson. When you try to be the bigger person and you say, we're going to stop all this stuff, we're going to take a step back, we're going to dismantle some of this overreach and stuff, you don't have any faith or confidence that they're going to do that when they get their turn next. So and everybody has that almost like self-preservation thing kick in, where they're just like, okay, it's my turn now. I'm going to, and I really believe that's kind of what happened with when Hillary was supposed to be the next president, and Trump just came out of nowhere and won this thing. They were counting on probably slow rolling what they're now doing today, because they kind of felt like Hillary's going to get it, and we've got a few years now that we can kind of bring this in slower. What you've seen since Biden won is this massive acceleration of this kind of totalitarian type stuff, and now people, it's shocked people. And I think that depending on what side of the spectrum you're on, I think it was a good thing in the sense that it woke people up, because I think we were in this, again, Democrat, Republican, left, right, whatever, we were all collectively kind of in this frog in the boiling water type scenario, where they over many years, decades, they were kind of slowly turning up the heat on that pot. And you're just sitting there like there are things that come along that you're kind of like, well, this really pisses me off. And then, but then again, 2 or 3 weeks later, whatever, no big deal. I've still got X, Y, and Z going for me. I think they turned that heat up way too fast this time, and you're seeing people jumping out because they're just like, what the hell?
You hope so.
I do. Yeah. I mean,
so.
and I think it kind of goes back to, and I've thought about this a lot, that idea that people don't really want to admit that they were wrong. People that fell for the Biden stuff, people that kind of,
it's an honesty thing. They don't want to be able to look and say, man, I messed up, but I can still fix it. Like, we can still fix this. Like, it doesn't have to be the guy you don't like that says things that you don't like. Like, it doesn't have to be that. It can be something totally different. But
what they need to realize too, and I kind of got that hint from you before, and I think where I stand on this stuff is, I'm not a huge like Trump guy. Like, I'm not like, I think Trump was even more kind of progressive is not the right word, but my opinion is like start dismantling agencies, like take it down to the bottom floor. The states need to be in control of 99% of what the government does. It needs to be a states' right issue. Most of the federal agencies should not exist. Trump wasn't, and this is what blows people's minds, especially those on the left. Trump wasn't like kind of constitutional enough. He wasn't conservative enough. That's the problem.
He just sounded like it really was an optic. If you actually look what he did, this is the problem. Like, if you actually take away and look at all the things he did a lot of, there was a lot of good things he did.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
Yeah.
crazy. Like, he actually took a lot more action than some other people do.
Yeah.
But like I said, as far as the things he said and some of the things he did, like, sure, everybody does good things, does bad things. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, Obama did good things and bad things. Like, he did plenty of both. Maybe if you believe one way or the other, he did more of one or the other, but he still did some
Yeah.
things. But what you said, like the conservative, the patriot, they follow that team, and then they don't want to admit that that was a mistake.
Yeah.
And when you take away freedoms, this is one thing I've tried to, for some reason, people don't get it though. When you say this to them, they're like, they want to take away the freedom to be able to say whatever you want to say. Like, they want to lock people down. You can't say that because that's hate speech. You can't say this. Like, I don't really care if it is hate speech, to tell you the
I don't
truth.
care at all.
I want everybody to be able to say whatever they want to say, because what you said is 100% true. Whenever you put in something in place, you can't say this, right? We're going to outlaw saying this. Wait until the other guy gets in power.
Yeah.
Like, you're only saying that because your side's the one making the rule.
They think their team's winning right now.
But when you take that same rule and you put the other team in control,
yeah,
now you're refused from saying the things that you want to say.
Yeah.
And I don't want that for either person.
No.
Like,
No.
It's the same thing with guns. I want everybody who chooses to own it, wants to own a gun. That's, there needs to be checks and balances.
Well, it's just mind blowing. This and that's a fantastic point, because it segues into the gun stuff. But one of the things that I hear lately with regards to what people can say or whatever, it's like hate speech. It's like if it's hate speech, you can't say it. Well, who determines that?
Yeah.
Because then, one of the fantastic points about these states now passing these red flag laws with gun confiscation and stuff like that.
I do not like
it's insane,
because the red flag law drives me nuts.
It's easy enough to just go in there and say, it's like, so New York, and this is part of the gun control stuff, but not a red flag law, but they passed after the decision in the Supreme Court, 2 weeks ago, where they basically came out and said that these places like New York City or Chicago, wherever it is, that they have these very strict, firm gun laws where you can't, effectively, it's like you can't own a gun.
Yeah,
you have to get a special.
You can't take it anywhere.
You can't go outside with it.
Right.
You can't carry out the house. But a lot of these places, the way that they were circumventing, the right to keep and bear arms, which is probably the most and only absolute right in the Bill of Rights, was that they were making the permit process extremely prohibitive, where it was basically like, oh yeah, you have a right here, but you have to get a permit, and the permit is impossible to get. So that's how they were getting around it. And so what New York, after they threw a big fit after the Supreme Court case a couple of weeks ago, they came out and they basically fixed, okay, yeah, we're going to let you have carry permits. But one of the things that they put in the application process was that you have to submit 2 or 3 years worth of your social media postings. And in the law, it actually says in there that whoever this bureaucrat, this case manager, this authority is that's going to review your application, he can basically look at your social media stuff and determine whether or not you have a right. Like there's something he can subjectively look at to say, well, you had this post about X, Y, or Z. And it could be, I mean, literally, it's like, well, it's a completely subjective type of thing. That's some guy.
100%.
So I could be sitting there and approving all applications because I don't give a shit. And then there could be some, some blue-haired, chick that's got a liberal arts degree or something that thinks that nobody should own guns.
Nobody would.
And she's gonna look on there and she's gonna see that you put something on your thing, a joke about transgender people.
She won't look at it. She'll just go, no.
And it probably not even look at it, right? And so it's like those things. when the Roe thing happened and everybody freaked out or whatever, it's like all that decision said was is that the federal government shouldn't be deciding that.
Yeah.
And they acted like they were just like
It's fed to them that way though. If you look at the way it's fed from political parties do this, they did that with, it was the most disgusting thing in the world, the Uvalde thing, because it went immediately into Beto running up and making a thing. All of the right and left from all over the country, they start saying gun control, and then this guy, the right starts saying their side. And it's like, dude, a bad person went into a school and shot kids. Like,
yeah,
let's investigate, after action report, whatever. Investigate that. But can we take a moment and just say, like, hey, that's a bad person? Like,
yes.
can we at least admit that and stop making political sides out of everything immediately?
In regards
but
to
they
that,
do that with the road thing too. They did the same thing. They go, here's this thing. Oh, all women's lose their right forever. You can't even vote anymore. You know what? You have to stay in the
you know
house.
what? It really pisses me off too with my friends and acquaintances and stuff that are on the more right side too, like on the right leaning conservative side, because I'll see things they post on social media that are obviously over the top hyperbole, or you see a lot of the QAnon stuff where you're just like,
Yeah.
because what that does is it's like, dude, you're making us look like idiots because there are legitimate things that are really, so-called conspiracy theories
Yeah.
that are a lot of it, most of it's true. There's a lot of stuff out
There's a
there,
lot more true now
a
than
lot
there is
more
before.
true that's not.
Yeah.
Stuff that you would say, and trust me, at the beginning of like the COVID stuff, all that stuff, I, I was where I'm at now. Like I knew back then that this was what was going on. The whole I knew that it came from a lab, and it was probably it was definitely man-made, and it came from a lab in China. To what degree you sit there and say, well, was it done on purpose? But they were calling you a lunatic by just saying that it came from a lab. Like they were calling you a conspiracy theorist. But the idea that they were going to use it to change or manipulate the election somehow, which they absolutely did when it came to mail-in ballots and things like that. Face masks, not working, or the fact that at some point they were going to mandate and force people to get shots, that they were going to try to use that as a mechanism to control people to your jobs, things like that. All those things happened. They all came true. And a year and a half ago, they were calling you a lunatic conspiracy theorist if you even started at the baseline.
Yeah.
And the further, and so now again, it's
now
like
you're still a lunatic conspiracy theorist, but that was just the correct thing.
My favorite was the ivermectin stuff, is because I was taking ivermectin within 2 months. I think y'all knew that.
Yeah.
Most of my friends.
My mom was too. My mom like went and stocked up on it.
I was taking it almost immediately because it's like something like I mean, I'm from the country. I know what the hell ivermectin is. I've known what it is forever. But when you started seeing data come out in India was one with the Delta surge, that they started treating people with ivermectin, and the results were just completely undeniable. Like the positive cases plummeted within a month of people started getting prescribed that. And I was taking it even before then, but people are, they're talking about the idea that it's like, oh, this is horse dewormer and stuff like that. And it's like, do you understand that ivermectin literally won a Nobel Prize for being a breakthrough human medication?
Yeah, river blindness.
It won a new Nobel Prize for doing like that much positive good in the world as a breakthrough medical innovation.
Yeah.
But they had people convinced that, and it's like, even when you sit back and say, okay, what if it does nothing? It's not like look at the side effects. Like there's really no literal residual side effects from taking it. So it's like, even if you're taking a placebo, basically, who gives a shit? But they had people convinced that this thing was not only ineffective, but it was actually bad for you, which are both completely wildly untrue.
Yeah.
And you didn't have people that would question that. They just they just ran with the narrative. And I'm sitting there thinking now, and I mean, so it's been what, almost 2 years since the COVID stuff started.
I guess. I mean,
close. Yeah.
I stopped paying attention.
I've never had COVID. I've never had it. Never once had it. Unless I was one of these people, these mythical or magical people that like were asymptomatic
Yeah,
spreaders and things
yeah.
like
Well,
that.
you're not really a spreader if you're
I
asymptomatic.
never got
Yeah.
sick from it whatsoever. Am I going to sit here and say that it was because I was taking ivermectin? No, but it damn sure didn't hurt. Like whatever was going on, like I don't know what I
Yeah.
did because I didn't change my lifestyle at all. I didn't stop going places. I didn't keep myself indoors. You know, I was still traveling out of state, going on trips and vacations and things like that.
Yep.
Didn't mask, didn't social distance. I didn't change my life in the least. And I never once got COVID. Is that just because I'm just like super special and gifted or something? You know, it's like let's and it goes back to the point when you start to figure out like how do you learn, take in all this information, try to start to figure things out and learn things, because I know people that are, if not once, if not 3 or 4 times vaccinated, and they've had COVID 2 or 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Legitimately, like I know people that have been vaccinated multiple times and they've had COVID multiple times.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking, it's like maybe we are like maybe we should start looking at some of the data here. Like, why is it that this is going on? If it was me that I'd been multiple vaccinated and I've had COVID multiple times, I'd be asking questions.
Yeah. The problem is what it's exactly what you said. It's not a political issue on left or right or whatever. It's that they sell it to them from their team. So they sell it on their side,
Yes.
whichever side that is. And I'm not saying either side is right. I'm saying both sides sell something hard. And then they go, I'm not going to sit back and question what you just said to be real.
Right.
I'm going to like, hey, how about we just question it to make sure it's honest and true and correct? Oh, no. We can't do that because this is what it is. Like, how do you know that's what it is? Because I got it from over here.
Yes.
But there's also this shelf over here you could get it from. It might be a different price.
Well, do you remember that weird little phenomenon where it's like part and parcel with that, where you know, Trump was the person that you know made the vaccine. That was the thing. Like that was this crowning achievement. Was
Yeah,
like
I know.
he
Yeah.
that was
And he pushed it super
and he
hard.
pushed it hard.
Everybody.
And many people that I know that are Trump supporters, that are Republicans and stuff, are vaccinated. You know, like this one should be one that transcends
They
parties.
forget that lockdowns, like the lockdowns, our freedoms and rights started to go away before he was out of office.
Yeah,
like he
yeah.
was promoting because he didn't know.
And that was individual states
Right,
that made
right.
those mandates and stuff. And of course, you saw a correlation if it was a red
Right.
state or if it was a blue state type of
But
thing.
he supported a lot of things and taking the
Measures.
freedoms away. But then people don't see that. They
Yeah.
see only like he's not Biden. And you're like,
yes.
wait
Yeah.
a second, wait.
Yeah.
And I mean, sending out stimulus checks, he's sending out stimulus checks. We have inflation now. And I said it to some dude the other day that he's on the left side of things, but I said it the other day. I was like, dude, who didn't think we were going to have inflation? They made up money to give us that got you through what, a month of rent?
Yeah.
Like literally they gave us
and the vast majority of that money went to like government agencies. It went to like private businesses. It didn't go to individual people because it was, you know, it was however many $1 trillion they passed.
Yes.
And they go back and they give each person $1,200 or whatever it was. And if you look at it, it was like your share of that. Say you got $1,200, your burden now, your tax burden to pay for that $1,200 is somewhere to the tune of like 10,000.
Yeah.
It's like, where did all that money go? And it went to, you know, I saw something when they passed the bill immediately. There was something about the Kennedy School of Performing Arts or something where they got like $10 million or something. Those bills are 100 pages deep of all these places that all this money is going. And you're just like, what the hell does that have to do with COVID? You know,
exactly.
But it's because, you know, you got somebody in there that just says, it's like, well, this is their little pet project or it's their district or whatever it is. That's where you see all this pork come from. Places like you could have, you know, here where we live, you know, somebody that's considered a staunch Republican guy that's supposed to be a, you know, thrifty, kind of stop spending money, stop going into debt kind of guy. But they bring pork back to their district too. When they pass these multiple, you know, billion, $1 trillion deals and stuff, they all stick things in there because ultimately at the end of the day, their idea is that they want to get reelected. And if you know, we collectively, we send a representative to Congress and you're looking around the other districts, the other states and things like that, and you see all this money going back to the University of Minnesota or, you know, the Department of Transportation in California or whatever, you look at your representative and say, why aren't you getting us money? Where's our stuff? Why,
Yeah.
and it's like, so that's, nobody ever stops because there's this competition to just get reelected. And in order to do that, basically you have to look like you're looking out for your people. You're taking
Yeah.
care of their interests and stuff. And all that usually means is what are you going to give me? What are you going to get us?
Yep.
You can have the most staunchly conservative people in, let's say right here down the road at Texas A&M. And they'll, they in private, in their friends groups and peer groups and stuff, they'll talk about cutting government spending and waste and COVID mandates or whatever. But if they could get a $10 million grant to A&M to study, quarantine lockdown measures or something, they'd immediately jump on it. Like,
Oh,
just
100%.
jump on it.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
so you got to balance that with kind of going back this full circle with the idea of friends and kind of seeing how people to react to things and stuff like that. I was really disappointed when I saw a lot of friends, and you see stuff on social media that, even if they're not very close friends, acquaintances, and people that from work or something like that, that it's if you can't, and I don't know the right answer in regard to this, but if you can't kind of take a step back and almost have this, I guess, understanding or appreciation for, um, people's past experiences and the way that they've kind of navigated life thus far, and separate the politics and all those things, it's really hard to want to maintain a relationship with some of these people. It's like sometimes I sit there and think is like, man, this person is totally lost it. Like they're out of control. Like, and it's kind of one of those deals where you're just like, and you have to do like almost like this.
You know what's crazy about that though? And I didn't mean to cut you off, but like what's crazy about that I've noticed is that when you're in front of them and like you have a conversation like you and I are doing now, they're a totally different human being.
Yeah.
Like
things get softer
when you can text. It's kind of like you said, society's gotten softer. That's the soft way of dealing with anything.
Yeah.
Like, and it drives if you're gonna chastise somebody or you're gonna correct them or you're gonna do whatever.
It's always when I say things get softer, it's like, those conversations, those opinions, those things that you talk about with each other. If you clearly have a difference of opinion, people get they get softer in their opinions.
Yeah.
They get a little bit mushier because it's different whenever you have to sit there and that you've got that bias in play where you can be somebody that just is staunchly, I don't know, anti-gay or whatever you want to.
Yeah.
Multitude of things. If you're talking to somebody like that, you get into an engagement, and this person. Generally speaking, they're not going to be completely out in the open with exactly how they feel, because I think that there's an element of people where they know sometimes that they're wrong, or they know that they're over the top, or even to some degree they are genuinely more of a compassionate person, that they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, or they don't want to. So then, certainly you see it with the stuff with social media, because then, people, they're posting the most outrageous stuff. And
yes.
It's like, you wouldn't say that to somebody face to face. You wouldn't say that to somebody in public. You wouldn't. And again, I don't know what to degree. It's like we joke about people trolling and stuff on the internet, and I do it sometimes. It's fun.
Oh yeah, it's super fun.
And I think, like, as long as you're not really doing it in a hateful way, it's not a big deal. But you see people troll with like very just kind of hateful, kind of insidious type things sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think it really does. It makes people think that the divide or the conflict that we're all going through right now collectively is worse than it is.
Yeah.
Because I think genuinely, I don't think that I think you have a very small fringe minority on both what would be considered the left and
100%.
the right. And then you've got this much larger kind of middle kind of ground where people are pretty close, like they're not going to be exact, And certainly you get down, if you talk about like countrywide, federal level, it's like that. But then you get down to individual states and things like that, and that divide gets smaller
It's
and
smaller,
smaller and
smaller.
smaller.
Yeah.
And that's one of the the negative. Social media is great because hell, I mean, all these things that we're talking about right now with the blitz of you know what would be misinformation or certainly propaganda that has formed all these narratives that you're supposed to be terrified of. If you're supposed to be terrified of racial oppression or COVID or Ukraine or Russia or whatever, and all these different things that are supposed to make people hysterical. Social media is largely responsible for that, but social media is also largely responsible for combating it
Turn it around. Yep.
because there's a lot of, if you didn't have that and you were just basically exposed to traditional sources like newspapers, TV, whatever else those would be, um, radio, you would there would be more people that would be like, the battle would be over, really, I believe, at this point.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for internet, if it wasn't for social media, stuff like that, they would have a complete monopoly.
Yeah.
It would be over.
They would.
And you would be sitting there thinking, it's like, am I the lunatic? Because because
Yeah.
everybody apparently is of this consensus that this is
Yeah.
this is right, this is right, this is right, this is right, and I'm anti all those. Like, am I the one that's crazy? And so for all the faults that social media has, I think it's more positive than negative.
Yeah.
There's a ton of negative associated with it for sure, and I do think you get into, we were talking about the Uvalde thing.
But all that stuff came out because of that. So like
You get all that,
Yeah.
yeah. But what I was getting at is that we talk about politicizing things very quickly, whatever. We have a mental health problem in this country that's undeniable. It's I mean, if you look at the singular most issue in this entire country in regards to the issues that we have, societal decay, it's mental health. It's all goes down to mental health. And how in the world, because that has become a politicized topic or debate.
Yep.
Because it's like people are vigorously trying to deny that that's the case, and it's shocking to me because what it does, and I've thought a lot about this. This started basically, you go back when COVID measures and lockdowns were going on and stuff. One of the things that certainly I was vocal about, but that small minority of people that were kind of like, this is not the right course of action here, was, what is this going to do to the next generation of kids? You've got this generation for the last 2 years. Many of them literally didn't go to school for 2 years. They didn't have any social interaction other than what they got on the internet, on social media. They basically have spent the last 2 years being, I don't know if neglected is the right word, but all the kind of the social stimulation, the education, the environmental exposure and experiences that go along with having a normal productive life, the masking, and certainly again just seeing all the politicization and the polarization across the country and stuff. That stuff takes an effect on kids, and constantly being fed with the idea that all these horrible things are lurking around the corner. They're coming for you.
Yeah.
You need to be careful because this thing's going to get you, and this thing's going to get you, and this thing's going to get you. And people very early on in the COVID thing were like, hey, like this is wrong. Like, what we're doing to these kids is going to become an issue. And then the what you see here recently, the last several events, these last few years of these shooters and these mass murder events, they've mostly been kids kind of in that early, late teens, early 20s. That's where that's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
There's something going on, like there has been residual effects of this. Now, if you say that, you turn into public enemy number one for two reasons. The first is because people don't want to admit, because if they were COVID lunatics, they don't want to admit that that was a bad decision. They don't want to say like, yes, we fucked these kids up, because they did. Like that was the thing is you made a stupid decision, and again, you can argue to what degree it was for political gain or ignorance or what, but you made a dumb decision, and now you've really screwed up and hindered, stunted a generation of kids. But then the secondary part is because for them it has to be about guns. There's no other, this, we have to use this as a mechanism to make guns go away. So we can't even attribute the idea that there's something wrong with the mental health in this country, because then it would take away from the idea or agenda that it's a gun problem. It's completely a people problem. This is a very, obviously a mental health human issue that we need to address. But if you bring that up, it's like they won't even have it. When they were talking about the new, as a response, you always go through this where they're going to pass a bunch of new gun laws and things like that. One of the things people talked about well, what are you doing for mental health? Absolutely nothing. What are you going to do to fortify schools or to provide additional security? Absolutely nothing. Like these are things that could do immediate impact.
Yeah.
They didn't want to have anything to do with it. All it was got to cram in as many, they strike while the iron is hot and cram in as many gun control laws as you can, because they know people are hysterical right now. And it's like the same thing with every other issue that comes along. The immediate response is, here, take all of my freedom and protect me. That's what people, take it all, just take it all, but keep me safe. And that's what they do. And so they knew that it's like, we got to pass gun stuff right now, because what happens in 2-3 weeks, a month, two, nobody cares
about it.
They forget about it because you told them to be scared and hysterical, and they did. And that, like, now nobody cares. You know, they'll sit there and you still got your, fringe people that are very, very adamant, still hardcore. But it's funny now because we've almost got so many like problems going on that they can't even keep up anymore. Like you're almost losing track of what you're supposed to be an advocate for or what you're supposed to be like, anti, or because it's like, shit, are we talking about Ukraine this week? Are we talking about, racial strife? Or are we talking about like what are we doing this week? Like has COVID started back yet? Like, I don't know. Like, because it's like, well, wait, it's okay. COVID will probably start up like right before election season again. So we've probably got like another 2 months of that before we got to worry about that. But so like right now it's like, well, what's going on with Ukraine? Like, and see, I know what's going on with Ukraine, which is like Ukraine's about to get their ass kicked.
Yeah, they're already
they're going to lose.
Yeah. Anybody who believes anything different, we're just wasting our money.
We're wasting our money. Yeah. We're continuing to launder money for
anybody in the military that I've heard talk to you knows that.
Yeah, and you know what the thing that surprised me the most is that it's taken Russia as long as it has. Like
some people, I've also heard some people say like that this is their MO. This tactic is something that he does that Russia has done for forever.
Mm-hmm.
But I hate to cut you off, but I actually have to go take the kids to the pool.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll have to do another one.
I would love to.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
And maybe
now you gotta start your podcast.
Yeah, I want to. I definitely want to.